If you're someone who's capable of doing hard things, maybe you run a business, maybe you're a parent, you're doing all these hard things, but then food choices for some reason just don't come together, we're going to unpack a bit of that now. Self-sabotaging with food choices, or just tripping up with food choices, making choices that used to lead to me feeling really rough, that was something I used to deal with a lot. And it was always really hard because I used to think, there are so many things in my life that I'm doing that are so much harder than just choosing a food that's going to make me feel good. But it's more complicated than that. So I'm going to help you with that in this video. And before we go on, if you want a free roadmap to living without dieting, there's a link in the episode description. As a nutrition coach, most people I find are in this space where they're either involved in some kind of diet that's too rigid and causing some kind of stress, or it's just chaos. So this roadmap is about navigating that middle way. So it's totally free, grab it, check it out. But like I was saying, surely if we can do one hard thing, we can do another hard thing, right? But there is this missing piece that we need to get really good at if we want to see improvements in our physical and mental health. So when we experience something hard, it essentially comes with two elements, a psychological part and a visceral part. This is generalizing, but for the sake of this exercise, it helps to make it simple. Ice baths, for example, they're definitely an exercise in building resilience because they come with a very, very intense visceral discomfort, obviously, of sitting in freezing water. And the logic with practicing something like cold therapy is like, well, if I can do this, surely I can do other hard things. But one huge contributor to the distress that we experience when we go through something difficult is the psychological element that we could call meaning making. The meaning that we give to different situations and experiences, the stories that appear in our mind. So you can sit in an ice bath and develop an ability to deal with visceral discomfort. It's going to make you more resilient, true. But your mind knows in those moments that, yeah, this is really uncomfortable, but this ice bath and this visceral discomfort, that's all that's happening here. This doesn't mean anything about me. It doesn't necessarily mean anything about the world. I'm going through some discomfort, but I could end this discomfort immediately just by getting out of the ice bath. It is very uncomfortable, but it has parameters. Whereas if you're experiencing distress or difficulty or a huge amount of challenge with something like your career or your key personal relationships, these are different and more distressing on a whole other emotional and psychological level because we attribute meaning to those challenges and those kinds of difficulties. You get rejected by someone you love. You go through something difficult with your career, and all of a sudden your mind is telling you things like, I'm unworthy. I'm not good enough. I'm never going to succeed. What if I never make it? What if I'm unhappy forever? And in so many ways, this is much more distressing than I'm in an ice bath and this is cold. Not to discredit things like cold therapy and challenging physical experiences. Those are important because there is a visceral experience that comes with emotional discomfort that we need a window of tolerance for. If we don't have that, then the moment we start to become uncomfortable viscerally, we kind of go, and start practicing some very avoidant coping strategies, which again, doesn't help us. So this is not to say that psychological distress tolerance is better than physical distress tolerance. I'm telling you, you need both because it's very easy to pick a camp and sit in it while the other one goes unaddressed. Some people like to challenge themselves with physical discomfort, but often kind of lean away from some of the more difficult emotional situations or psychological kinds of discomfort. Whereas other people sit in therapy for years and just talk it out over and over and over again, but could probably do with challenging themselves a little bit more outside that kind of sphere. And why I'm talking about this in the context of self-limiting or self-sabotaging decisions with food. When our window of tolerance for any kind of distress that we might experience regularly, hopefully not too regularly, but regularly enough, when we don't have a window of tolerance for the kind of stress that we experience, we usually snap in one way or another and often dive into what we could call avoidant or self-limiting habits, food choices that don't serve us, alcohol, binge watching TV. We're not really enjoying what we're watching anymore. It just becomes like a numbing experience. Any kind of avoidant or numbing type behavior. These things very rarely work out long term. So this is why we're talking about resilience here, not just physical, but psychological and emotional. So if you're already working on your window of tolerance for distress and discomfort with physical challenges like workouts, ice baths, keep doing it. And practice some other really difficult things like communication and boundary setting. Also, things like meditation and mindfulness help us take charge over where the spotlight of our attention goes. And what I mean by that is we all might experience unwanted or intrusive thoughts that aren't helpful any number of times on any given day. But if we're able to kind of take charge of where the spotlight of our attention goes, those thoughts can appear and we can easily take that spotlight of our attention and go, not there, thanks. That's not what I want to be thinking about. That's not helpful. I'm going to put my attention over here where it is more helpful. Boundary setting, communication, meditation. To make this really actionable, practice these two things. Start with the very simple exercise of noticing the meaning that your mind is adding to different situations. What is my mind making this mean about me or about the world? Then follow up with one or more of these 4 questions. What if this idea is not as true as it feels? What if this worst case outcome isn't actually as likely as I think? What else could be equally true? And what evidence can I find to support other perspectives that might actually serve me better and be less self-limiting? Like, who else has come back better, stronger, more successful after experiencing some struggles with their job or their career? Who else has made it successfully through some challenging situations with personal relationships? Who else has felt like, oh my God, I'm never going to be happy again, and found their way back from that? Remember, practicing physical resilience and building our physical window of tolerance is great. But if we really want to get a handle on self-limiting habits and find the happiest, most fulfilled, strongest version of ourselves, noticing and navigating through things like meaning making is essential to add to your skill set. So I hope this was helpful. My name's Marcus. Add this to your practice if you're not doing it already. And yeah, follow this channel if you've enjoyed this video.